All right, we're here for the finals. We got John Ashworth, otherwise known as John from Berkeley, playing on his Tarmogoyf playmat. Eric Dupuis playing on his Jace Hands playmat. Now, fun fact about your playmat, didn't your kids help you do that?
My kids made that. Yeah, we masked out the Jace hand pattern in the text in the middle there, and then they just finger painted all over it. They had a blast with that.
Your kids made that? Aren't they like 2?
Yeah,
like
two and 5.
4?
Yeah, they finger painted all over it, and then we just removed the hand thing.
All right.
So the negative space was masked off, so they couldn't get paint in there. Though Xavier did manage to get a little bit. He was so enthusiastic he nudged one of the lines off, but it was toward the edges, so just add some character. And yeah, John picked that up at that's the playmat from Vintage and Legacy Champs, which is a really well-run tournament.
Yeah.
Did a great job over there with Nick Koss and in Philly. Looking forward to that in the coming years, seeing how big those events get.
One of the most iconic playmats I've ever seen.
I was really excited about it when I saw it. I immediately they were giving out 2, one for Vintage and one for Legacy, and I thought they were only going to give out 1 per person, so I actually signed up for Legacy and got the extra playmat and flipped them both on eBay, like while I was there. One of them went to somebody who was very excited about getting it. They were going to DC the next weekend, and they weren't able to. They wrote me a whole paragraph on eBay for the best offer. I was like, all right, you got me. If you're gonna write a whole paragraph, I'm gonna lower my asking price. But it's a beautiful playmat. I would have considered keeping it for myself if I didn't already have the homegrown stuff going on.
Yep. John from Berkeley, being a true gentleman, starting off at 10 life, giving you a fighting chance.
Digging in for some dice. Probably gonna need him. He's on Goblins this time. He's done really well as the unpowered deck. Now this is the finals, so he's going to top 4, and no matter what, and he will be the highest unpowered prize. So really good performance from him here. I think it shows just what the unpowered decks can do. This is the second time he's been in the finals. If you ask him, he would think that this is a much more favorable matchup compared to like a Storm deck. I'm not convinced of that. I really think that when Storm has a first turn kill, which is what he's worried about, it kills everything. Like it's just, you just lose. Like if it has first turn Force of Will backup or Duress backup, I mean it's just, there are a ton of games where it just beats you. You know, workshops included. Like you're just dead. Whereas my deck, there's a lot of problems for him. That the game goes on. You know, Young Pyromancer, for example, can create a bunch of 1/1s, which could make something like Goblin Lackey never get through.
Right.
So I am actually going to throw a force at that, just to get a guy.
Keeping you off red mana for now.
So I've established a clock.
John does have a Guru Mountain, recently acquired.
Alright, so we're at 17. Trying to keep it together here with the life total, 17 all.
Now a Pyrokinesis out of John's hand could definitely change things.
Yeah, I don't know if he's running those main deck.
Probably not main deck.
I think game 2 and 3, he's very, very likely to have a bunch of those. It served him really well. I do know he was running Goblin Ringleader for this matchup, which is trying to pull the deck more towards the grindy Legacy Goblin build. Decks like White Trash are kind of a problem when you're running Goblins if you don't have the ability to grind them out. So.
Right, at some point you need to draw a lot of cards.
Because they can force trades all over the place. Now, he may have Krenko as well, I'm not sure. His legacy list is, oh, here we go, Goblin War Chief.
Going to 13 off the fetch.
And he's not attacking, so he's recognizing the...
Block a 1/1.
I can't swing, yeah.
Yep.
I really can't. I'm not going to trade a Pyromancer here. I don't have double blue. I don't have double island, I should say, so Gush is not currently online. I don't have Lightning Bolt. But not the best situation here.
Nope, John's starting to pull back in. He drew a strip mine.
Cycling Gem Palm.
Oof.
That is just disappointing to not be able to respond to. You want to be able to kill that War Chief in response, but was not to be.
Gets in there.
15. Now he could just prowl out an Earwig squad. Ooh, no dice.
Nope.
If he had the Earwig, prowl does get reduced by the War Chief's ability.
Does it?
It does, yeah.
Oh,
It only costs 2. It's a beating.
What do you prowl in this matchup? Tarmogoyf?
I don't know. I don't know what the best line is. Goyf would be an option because he's enormous. Lightning Bolt could be a really good choice. Definitely not counter. I really don't care about those at all.
Yep. So, John from Berkeley, swinging in for 4.
All his goblins are going to cost 2 less now and have haste. Things are out of hand very quickly here. I'm going to need to do quite a bit to stabilize.
You gotta get like a green source in Tarmogoyf, or like you need some lightning bolts, something. So you have whatever color you need most. Excuse me.
Yeah, that pass there, not a good sign.
No. John from Berkeley in his comfort zone.
Warren Instigator.
Oh yeah.
A hasty Warren Instigator.
What is it's a 1/1 double strike?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the legacy lists were running Warren Instigator with the Goblin Chieftain to make it a 2/2, so it actually hit for 4.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really see that as much anymore. You don't really see as much Goblins in general. John's one of the few people to really stick by the list.
Yeah.
He's had a lot of success with it, and I think he just wants to stick with it as long as possible.
Bolt for the War Chief. That bolt would not have mattered pre-combat because it would not have, since he had 2, it wouldn't have taken away the haste. Might as well just let him make the attack. Does he play Siege Gang Commander in this list?
I don't know if that's still in there. There's so many options with Goblins. You can look at Krenko. You can have Siege Gang. You can have, with the splash colors, you can have Wart.
Yeah. Wart is one of those other grindy cards that'll really help you win in the control matchups.
If you're getting back Gem Palm Incinerator every turn versus a creature deck, that's going to be pretty brutal.
Gonna bolt the Instigator? Or the War Chief?
I'm guessing I'd go with the War Chief.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Instigator. Like, he can play whatever goblins he gets anyways.
Yeah.
That's going to be much easier to deal with.
I think he's holding on to like a Gem Palm Incinerator, which he would not want to put in.
Yeah, if he had a War Chief, though, he would want to put it in and just kill me next. Not this turn, but the next turn.
Right.
So that's another big reason to get rid of it. Any goblin that he draws, if he has the War Chief, is just increasing the clock.
Haste is such a good ability.
It's probably the best one. It really, what it does is it turns creatures into real spells. The problem with creatures is they're limited by not actually mattering until next turn. Like, they just sit there.
Yeah.
Not quite as bad as coming into play tapped, but pretty close. Alright. Going to 4.
John from Berkeley, John. Playing a Pile Driver.
Yeah,
and that spells death next turn if you cannot do something.
Pile Driver plus...
Tarmogoyf would be a relevant creature.
Yeah, Tarmogoyf would be just fine.
Even Lightning Bolt.
Would buy a little bit of time. Kill the Warren Instigator, and then the Pile Driver can only come in for 1.
Going down to 3. Oh, looks like Goyf showed up. Potentially.
Nope,
no.
Just hoping for him to show up.
Yep.
Let's see.
Gotta give yourself the opportunity.
Potentially land a Goyf and a Bolt. That would be completely stabilizing.
Yeah,
Now the nice thing is Grafdigger's Cage does literally nothing against my deck.
that is nice.
The only thing it could possibly do would be get countered to pump my Goyfs. That's
Yeah.
pretty much it.
Delver, not enough. Because the Pro Blue 3 power
is coming through.
Yeah. Alright, so going to game 2.
Nice quick game there.
Yep.
Tends to be the way these type of matchups go. Both players are very familiar with the decks and kind of make sure you're never going to be going to time.
Yeah. John from Berkeley definitely bringing in his pyrokinesis, taking out his Grafdigger's cages.
There you go, more ringleaders in the sideboard. Yeah, I feel like my deck poses a lot of very large problems for him. As we talked about before, Lightning Bolt and Young Pyromancer can potentially just own the game. Goyf is a huge problem to get past, very difficult to use Incinerator on. And Delver is hard to deal to. It's a fast clock in the air, so Incinerator or sideboard cards are the only way he's going to be getting rid of it. And then the counters are fairly weak. That's probably the biggest issue, is they're not able to stop any of his goblins from hitting, but they are able to stop something like Pyrokinesis.
Yeah. But I mean, you definitely take out Flusterstorm, take out Steel Sabotage. Spell Pierce, maybe you leave in. Misstep, you definitely leave in.
Yeah, Misstep is really strong. I think Flusterstorm might be better than Spell Pierce because you can respond with a Gush and make it cost even more mana. Compared to Spell Pierce, I think Spell Pierce is only going to be able to hit stuff like Pyrokinesis.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. If you're not worried about Planeswalkers, Artifacts, or Enchantments, Flusterstorm's always going to at least be 2.
Yep.
And it could potentially be more than 2.
Yeah.
It's definitely a valid point.
And there's a strong chance of him playing stuff pre-combat as well. He could potentially like play some stuff pre-combat with haste, and then go to an attack step and hope for a block where Pyrokinesis just Wrath of Gods me, and instead, just like, nope, sorry.
Yeah.
He's gonna eat those 1/1s. So piling out again.
Yeah, I mean, Vintage is really cool right now because the last couple videos we've done, before we started this video series, if you asked me about Vintage, I would have told you, okay, there's like 5 decks you can play. You can play Oath, you can play Dredge, you can play Storm, you can play Shops, and you can play Control. And these tournaments are really proving that there is a whole lot more out there than what I initially thought anyway. People getting really creative, lots of room for brewing right now. It's very, very exciting format to be a part of. It does have that barrier to entry because of the power. But John is showcasing that you don't necessarily need power to get to the finals. The dual lands are still relevant as well. But not to John.
Yeah, I feel like when you're taking a look at what you're spending your money on in Magic, dual lands have just done extremely well, and they're on the reserve list. I know a lot of people don't like the reserve list. I sympathize with what they feel is the problem, but to me, the real threat to Magic is cards going to 0. That's the death of a card game, when cards go to 0. And the reserve list makes sure that supply is always going to be much less than the demand. They're continually going up in value. There have been games that just print their money cards, suck all the money out of the secondary market, and eventually you've got a supply that's so much bigger than the player base that the cards aren't worth buying. Nobody wants to buy cards that go to 0.
Right.
Like when you buy a booster pack, or you buy a box, or you draft, you get cards. If you were just buying pieces of paper that weren't going to be worth anything, this game just would never have survived. And the nice thing about Legacy is when you buy those cards, they continually go up in value.
Yes. I mean, didn't Stoneforge Mystic just saw a huge jump recently?
Absolutely.
That was a $10 card forever, and now it's like it retails somewhere around like $25-30.
Yeah, no, it's continually going up. I wouldn't be surprised if Stoneforge ends up landing at 40 to 50.
Yeah, John, trying to be a gentleman again, starting off at 12, and you just out gentleman the hell out of him. let him have that life right back.
He's gonna need it.
No,
Make
sir.
it a game.
Yeah. See, the thing, getting back to Stoneforge though, I don't understand what caused it to spike, because it's been printed, it's been reprinted, and it's only played in one format. It's not like other cards like Dark Confidant and Tarmogoyf and Vendilion Clique, where it's very popular in Modern, very popular in Legacy, and sees play in Vintage. Like, it literally is only a Legacy card.
Yeah, I mean, it's Jace the Mind Sculptor is the closest thing to it in terms of its play. Jace does see a lot more play in Vintage, but it's an iconic card, so it has that going for it. But it's both of them from World Wake, and World Wake was drafted as Zendikar World Wake. So there's not a lot of it opened, and people were cracking packs. You know, the few packs that were out there, people have largely cracked them looking for Jaces. Not like there's tons of sealed World Wake just sitting there. So I think what you're looking at is the supply is relatively well known, and people take a look at that and say, we feel this card is undervalued, let's find out. The same thing happened with the Shocklands. The Fetchlands. When you took a look at it, it's like, why aren't these worth more? The Zendikar Fetchlands were so much less than the Onslaught ones, and people, started buying them from their competition and saying, we think that we can sell these for more, and they were right. Now, sometimes you fail when you do stuff like that. That happens all the time. I've seen companies buying Birds of Paradise when Noble Hierarch was rotating out of Standard. I've seen all sorts of gambles that made sense to them, and they thought this is definitely going to happen, and it didn't work out that way. And the market lets them know. They end up losing money. Limdul's Vault was another card like that. When Mystical Tutor got banned from Legacy, people moved into Limdul's Vault very heavily.
You just missed the Delver trigger so hard.
Didn't even look.
Just peeled it right into the hand.
Time walk. There you go.
Let's try
it on the next
try
time.
that again.
I remember this time. Must have been able to sense that it wasn't.
It just wasn't important that time. Wasn't gonna flip. Gonna put John on super tilt. I don't know how they do things in Berkeley.
So we've got a preordain here, making sure the Delver is almost certainly going to flip next turn.
Well, yeah, you left a card on. No, you didn't. You're going to draw that card, so.
Just not caring about Delver flipping. And going to fetch anyways.
Yeah.
Put it on the bottom and fetch.
In the double green here. Maybe you have more than one Tarmogoyf in your hand.
A Goyf.
Because this will guarantee that even if he plays a Strip Mine or a Wasteland next turn, you can still play another Goyf. Although, you could always just Gush.
Yeah, Gush is great versus those in the short term, just trying to keep card advantage there. It's much more like the original Gush list at this point compared to the combo ones that we saw in the middle of.
Yeah, the original one. I mean, now I wasn't playing Magic at the time, but I did hear tale of it. It was like a Winter Orb with like Daze and Foil and Quirion Dryad and Swords to Plowshares. It sounded pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was Super Grow. I also ran Meddling Mage in that. I had a lot of experience with Grow back in the day. I was playing Gush decks throughout the whole transition. When I first started playing Vintage, I was convinced that every single deck that I would ever play would play 4 Brainstorm, 4 Gush, and 4 Force of Will.
I'm sure if you were ever allowed to again, then you'd make sure that happens.
Yeah.
Oh, GT equip.
GT's a beating.
John, you're not it's not looking so hot right now.
Yeah, that's no instance yet. Jan wasn't able to Wasteland on his turn because it wouldn't have mattered. It would have kept him on 1, and he just would have got hit in the face again. Wasteland's not great from this position. So he draws more of them.
He's got the Matron.
Yeah, Matron isn't going to be able to do very much. It's not even going to be able to chump block. It's going to get pushed out of the way by the GT. Growing the Goyf. There's going to be more counters coming onto that GT. This is a very grim situation.
Yeah, it's all but over. His even if he draws a Pyrokinesis, like, he can't kill both things, and he'd have a tough time killing one thing, depending on what kind of backup you have.
Yeah, we haven't even seen an instant go into the graveyard, so if he Pyrokinesis targeting Goyf, I'd be able to kill the...
Yeah, he's just picking him up.
Yeah, he can't. Even with Pyrokinesis, he literally couldn't kill either of those guys. I could just pump the Delver in response, or I could kill the Matron,
kill a creature,
and then when the Pyrokinesis goes to the graveyard, now Goyf is a 5/6.
Yeah.
So when your best card's not good enough, probably time to move on.
Yeah. Taking a look, making sure he's not going to bring in something else.
Yeah, I think probably consulting about that GT. I mean, that's not a card you just want to get blown out by.
No.
You can bring stuff in to deal with that.
And you have 2 of them that you bring in, right?
Yeah, I think it's important. There's a lot of creature decks in the format. I think it's really strong versus them. And there are times where you're just not going to want to waste a lightning bolt on an X1. Like versus Affinity, for example. Adrian had a very crazy robot Affinity list. GT would be absolutely amazing in that matchup. You couldn't possibly bolt all of the creatures, but GT could definitely keep him with a low enough count, and then your bolts would be able to be used on something like a Lodestone Golem that you're really happy to use the card and the full 3 damage on.
Yeah, if you asked me a year ago, I would have said you were crazy if you told me that GT was going to be competitive in Vintage.
Yeah, the format's changed a lot. There are so many more creatures now. Oath is, oddly enough, really good, but in a form like there's just a ton of creatures. Like, you wouldn't think that Oath would be so good and people would still play creatures. You'd think that would just like crowd it out. But the creature decks are prepared to fight against Oath. In my list, I've got the 4 Grafdigger's Cages and the 3 Nature's Claims, along with a huge amount of counters. And yeah, you've got a matchup that you're not thrilled to have, but you're very prepared for it, and you try and get it to at least a 50-50.
I love the Oath deck. I think it's so cool. Because it has a lot of the powerful vintage things like the Time Vault Key that you can do. You know, you can Lotus into a turn 1 Jace. You can, it has Show and Tell, so that it can fight around all that hate Grafdigger's Cage.
That's the one card that I've lost to recently. I've had some really good outings versus Oath over the last 3 or 4 tournaments since I've been running this deck. And yeah, I believe the only time I've lost to it recently has been Show and Tell, where I was able to completely nerf all of their other outs, and yeah, they just jammed 2 Show and Tells in a row. I countered the first one, and then the next turn they played Show and Tell with 3 mana still available, and my Flusterstorm couldn't counter it.
Alright, so John going to be on the play this turn. See if he keeps his 7. I mean, if you're going to keep your 7, it's probably going to involve a turn 1 Lackey.
Or at least Cavern with some really difficult to deal with goblins.
And the one thing that I don't like about the Vintage Goblin list is that in order to have a fighting chance against all the broken things that other Vintage decks want to do, you really have to decrease the Goblin density. And that's one of the things that makes it so powerful in Vintage. I mean, in Legacy. I'm sorry. Turn 1.
Holy cow, double SSG.
Ugh.
I don't know what
3 for
spell
2.
I wouldn't counter. Like, I can't even imagine, like, how bad would that card have to be for me not to counter it there.
It's just extremely high value force.
Ooh, misstep. So we've got both of our creatures have been countered here.
You are still up a card. You're up 2 cards being on the draw. Now, if John can follow this up with a turn 2 or an Instigator, no. See, like those Simian Spirit Guides could have just been like Goblins. But they can't, because you need that explosiveness in this format.
It can be very helpful to be able to land a Lackey and a Grafdigger's Cage on the first turn.
Yeah.
It's a difficult choice. I think most of the time, like the matchups where Grafdigger's Cage is good, you actually do jam the Grafdigger's Cage on the first turn because you don't want to lose to the turn 2 Tinker.
Right.
And to be able to do both is just infinitely better. You know, you can gamble and put out the first turn Lackey, but a lot of games you're just going to be cursing the fact that, you know, all you got to do was play a Lackey. But, well, not really. You also got to choose not to stop your opponent from tinkering.
Right.
So,
wow, 3 mana and
yikes.
nothing to do.
That is not a good sign for John here.
You don't have a creature either, though.
No, but I've got a Jite.
Yeah.
So
there's the Warren Instigator.
Pretty good shape
Uncounterable.
here.
What are you going to do with all that mana?
Oh, saying go.
Pass the turn. I mean, it's not like he's probably going to put anything in off this.
Well, not going to find out.
We won't find out. Unless he has all expensive goblins in his hand.
And a Lackey.
He must have just drawn that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Jite would actually be interesting in the Goblin list as well.
Oh, sure.
Throw that thing on a Warren Instigator, and that's just lethal very fast.
Yeah. Walk.
Just drawing a card, apparently.
But you gotta find that threat.
Yeah, if I find a threat, I'm just in excellent shape. I'll be able to...
Oh, and that is the best one.
Jam a Goyf. Saddle it up.
You might not even saddle it up this turn. You might just leave up some responses.
I feel like it's very tempting to saddle it up just in case he gets a hasty guy.
Sure.
Yeah, if you don't want him to be able to draw a War Chief and potentially get going. Or
Franco? No.
This is a bad spot now. This is where things get absolutely gruesome. Swinging with Palm. Okay, so he blocked and then cycled, so I wouldn't get any counters.
Yuck. Not where you want to be. I mean, like, you have to, otherwise you can't do anything, but yeah, you just drew a gem palm and...
You can probably do the same trick again, perhaps.
Yeah, but it's over.
Yeah, you're not really getting anywhere. He's going to need a way to get rid of the artifact.
Yes.
And then even still, the Goyf is a huge problem. What do we have? Gem Palm, Pyrokinesis, Earwig Squad.
Not going to be enough. Eric taking it down. Well, that was a really interesting tournament there. We saw a lot of cool decks. We saw 2 variations of like human creature decks. We saw a mono white, very similar to Death and Taxes. The vintage players call it white trash. We saw junk humans, goblins. So I look forward to doing this again real soon. Got to thank Dave Tassinari for hosting the event, Eric for starting it all, and for helping me do this coverage. Thank TheEndStep. Any final thoughts?
No, I'd like to thank the community. You know, the support for 2013 was really great. I really hope we're able to grow the format even more over 2014. Hopefully next January we'll be talking about some of that success.
Alright guys, thanks a lot for stopping by, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.